Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Mikey, how are you? And I know that when we have topics in field notes about organizational change, this sounds like just a sheer blanket of boredom. And I don't know why I get so excited about organizational health and organizational change, but I'm gonna put it in this lens. Last night I saw a play called The Shark is Broken,
Okay.
which is about what really happened as they were making the movie Jaws,
Oh, interesting.
written by the son of one of the three main actors.
So even
From
in
this, I do have lessons. I'm just telling you here in advance that the shark is broken.
Will come up here. Okay. Yeah. Well, let me ask you, do you know how many employees Volkswagen has?
13,412.
The fifth largest company in the world, 676,000 employees.
I was way off.
Foxconn, 826,000 employees. Amazon, 1.5 million employees. And number one, Walmart, 2.1 million employees.
That's a lot.
Walmart employees there.
I should have ratcheted up on Volkswagen because I've had a couple of Audis and other things in that. Yeah.
Right. So Walmart makes what the media is portraying to us as a surprise announcement that it is phasing out self-checkout last week. I don't know if you caught wind of this announcement from Walmart.
I did not. I'm actually kind of excited about that, but go ahead.
Right. No, there's all kinds of reasons why people would be more excited about that, not having to do somebody else's job when you go shopping, right? Which is an overgeneralization, but still, right? So
pause the conversation here because I won't be able to concentrate on the rest of the content if you don't. And I don't know why I would not have seen this. I'm fairly well informed. What is the reason given, which might not be the real reason, but what is the reason that Walmart has given for this?
Would you like to guess?
I would say that they've had problems or efficiency, or they feel like they need to have a more personal connection to the customers, or that they've been having problems with loss.
It's about theft prevention, loss prevention.
Yeah,
is the main reason there.
So whatever you saved in doing it, you're losing more money through the other problems.
Yes. And so they're quoting the idea in a few articles that Walmart shoppers have never really adapted fully to the self-checkouts due to technical glitches or whatever. And so since that full adoption hasn't taken place, it's going to be so a lot of times people are just seeing the headlines. So Walmart is not in charge of the headline, right? But when you actually dig into these articles, you realize, even though the article says Walmart is eliminating self-checkout lines, that's really in select stores. So there's some other evaluation that Walmart is doing. Either way, the communication about it ends up being horrible because I don't think Walmart wants to communicate out to the entire country, the entire world, that they are scaling or eliminating self-checkout lines. If what the real headline should have been that in maybe 50% of stores, they're going to be scaling it back at that point. But they have done it in some key stores that are usually test markets for them, like up in Arkansas and Missouri. There has been some that have been completely, the self-checkout is completely gone now. And so there's now speculation. So our question is internal speculation, external speculation, 2.1 million employees. This is a complicated communication, right?
Yes. Now there's a marketing challenge, right? And that kind of communication happens. And then there's strategic communication, which gets closer to where the field note is, which is how internally, and you can have organizations with, 300 people, 300,000 people, 2 million people. Now, again, Walmart, some of the others, a lot of these are part-time, which actually makes it even more complicated because some of the people might not have, all of the resources in terms of being plugged into the day-to-day of the company. So how do you make all of those people feel like they're part of the change?
Yes. Which begs the question that is posed in our field note today.
Yeah.
Does size matter when it comes to organizational change? Yeah. Because your first thought would be, well, if I ran a couple locations, mom and pop stores in retail that kind of competed with, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, number one, I wouldn't have the external communication. It's not like MSN would be reporting on whether or not I was moving to self-checkout or not, right? Or eliminating it. And so I wouldn't have to compete with the fact that other people are trying to interpret my internal memos with that. But other than that, I mean, it feels natural that size would matter, right? The largest organizations in the world, they're obviously the way they communicate internally would be different than internally. But when we dig into this, there's really only 4 things. There's 4 qualities that, and it was interesting to me as I read through it, these 4 qualities are going to be true in my mom and pop store the same way that it would be in 2.1 million employees.
Well, and the other thing that jumped out to me in this, before you even get to the qualities, which is, we've always known that when you think of leaders in organizations, there's kind of like a 7-to-1 ratio. There's usually you have some tier of somebody who's responsible for this area, and there might be a lot of direct reports, but really there's some degree of leadership around every 1 to 7 people. So you can do a mathematical calculation, but really when you look at the key figures and most organizational change, by the way, I wasn't exaggerating, which is we have one of our modules in our main playbook, our subscriber platform, that is about change in organizations. And I really was certain, having produced all of that content and watched all the 100+ videos, in there, dozens and dozens of times, that I thought, oh, this will be my least favorite. And I kind of really like it. I always, when I'm listening to those behaviors, and it's not like I'm not running an organization of 40,000 people or trying to figure out how to scale, but we have in our parent company, we have a leadership development side and we have a strategic communications division. And that strategic communications division is coaching organizations on how they communicate internally, not externally. You brought up the case of, like, we're explaining this in a bunch of directions on how this word leaks out. But when you look at that and you say, well, who are the key stakeholders and who are the people that really drive any organization? And the field note kind of posits that even among the largest organizations, so you would think, whether it's Volkswagen or Walmart, it's a couple hundred people.
Right.
And that's, you have to get 200 people maybe on board or understanding what's going on. And if they are on board, the 2 million people, that you have a chance to get all of them on board.
Right. So it still does feel like, okay, if you had to communicate to 250 people and make sure that your communication was airtight, there's a lot of behaviors that you need to be up to speed on, just if your organization was only 250.
Yeah.
But the idea that you could scale from 250 to 2.1 million with pretty much the same framework intact for your internal communication, that's kind of exciting.
Sure.
To be able to talk about it that way.
All right. So I'll do the 4 qualities. So we would say that when you think of those, so let's say 200 people, but let's say you have a organization of 200 people, and maybe it's only going to be 15 or 20 people, like whatever it is, or maybe it's 7 people.
Right.
You're going to need those people to be bought in. Like, they have to subscribe. They have to be like, I'm not hesitant on this. I get the logic. I see the stakes. I'm for the mission here. I am all about it. Right. Second quality is, well, what is the actual messaging around the change? Because if Mikey's in charge of one side and Scott's in charge of this other division over here, and we're talking about it in any way different terms, different language, different, things can get off. It's like a game of telephone, where pretty soon the message is very different. So modeling the change, because I can go in and say, all right, everybody, this company's decided to do this, and then I go about doing things just like I've always done them, then I'm not modeling the change. So is there a process by which the team leaders understand that? And then the fourth quality is, what do those team leaders expect and require of the people on their team? So if you have that, if they're bought in, if they're clear on the message, if they're modeling the change and they're making it really clear, now you have a chance. Now, the exciting thing about all of this is, and we always say that when we're talking about organizational change, people hate the word change. This is just our strategy for success. It could be the strategy of success for your family, or it could be the strategy for success for your nonprofit or your church or your community group. It's like, what are you doing to make the impact, the dent in the universe that you want to make? Because then these steps actually become not boring at all.
Right. No, it is interesting. Change management is the thing that kind of turns us off into be like, what does that mean? For sure. But when you think about what change management is, it's really just your communication strategy, right?
Yeah.
And the way that you communicate is the way that those things, and these qualities that you just mentioned, which, by the way, if you feel like Scott moved too quickly for them, they're in today's field notes. So go over to admiredleadership.substack.com, look at the top entry. That is the thing that we're discussing today here for 15 minutes. But those four qualities specifically are ones that, they kind of apply to a family of 8 in the same way that they apply to an organization of 2.1 million people in it, because it's important that I want to gain subscription when we're deciding on where we're going for the family vacation, right?
Yes, no doubt.
I just make that choice by myself, my 6 kids and my wife are going to be upset at me in a way that it will not be a vacation, right? And so
you're going to hear about it.
Yeah, getting subscription is very important. Messaging about, what the vacation will be like, how it's a change from our day to day, like who needs to get babysitters for the dogs, how it is that we shut the house down, what we're going to do on day 1, 2, and 3. That messaging needs to start early on before we even leave on that. But that's, again, it's true for a family of 8 in the same way that it would be true for 2.1 million.
I actually just realized that because we're getting close. We're up, close to 90,000. So let's say we pretty soon have 100,000 Field Note subscribers. That's like a pretty big company. So we actually would be saying, like, we have this Field Note that went out today. How many of those people read it? Did they really understand it? Did they buy into it? What would we have to do to have like team leaders within the Field Notes overall subscriber universe to get people to be like, all right, how's your precinct doing? Right. But you could see how it would go, because you could just put out a Field Note. It doesn't mean that 90,000 people all of a sudden be like, I get it.
Yeah,
there is a degree of consistency that has to come in, and you actually have to understand what the main through line is. So let me just toss back in why I brought up the Jaws play on The Shark is Broken, which is basically a play about Richard Dreyfuss and Roy Scheider and Robert Shaw, the 3 main sort of well-known actors who were in this. And apparently it's a play that's based on some reality. It was written by Robert Shaw's, one of his kids, about the conflict. Then in week 8, they're just stuck because the shark's broken. And so you've got these 3, guys hanging out on the boat, just going after each other, and torturing each other in various ways. And so whatever's happening there today, I happen to see I get lots of communications emails. And there was a presentation guy, and he was talking about the idea of film and log lines. There's different names for them, but like, what is the movie about? What's the pitch? And the one for Jaws is often been used as sort of, if you said, okay, this is it. A police chief with a phobia for open water battles a gigantic shark with an appetite for swimmers and boat captains, in spite of a greedy town council who demands that the beach stay open. Okay. There's a hero, there's a conflict, there's an obstacle. I think that's actually still a little bit wordy, but whatever it is, and I do think that, by the way, that when you say that your organization should have a reason to exist, right? That you should be able to say in probably a sentence or 2. If you're going to make change, you should be able to explain that in a sentence or 2.
Right.
And then everybody needs to be on board with exactly what the bigger purpose of this is that we're doing it, how it's serving the mission, that why you even came to organize this company in the first place. But when you get those 250 leaders, they all need to know that log line. They all need to know that through line, that key theme or whatever that thing is, or it will definitely fall apart.
Was the play about the conflict that comes from leaders subscribing to the log line?
Like, no, the play was not about that. I just happened to see this email today about this idea of what is your, and I saw somebody else early in the week had written a post about kind of like, what is your 1-sentence definition of what you are doing in the world, the kind of dent in the universe you're trying to make. And most people just don't really ever get down to brass tacks to kind of craft that out.
Right.
I love doing that for organizations, and it's sort of a hobby even, right? Like, it's like to figure that part out. So I just get excited when you say that here's what we're all about. Here's what we're trying to do. And then you're empowering people on the team to spread that message through. And these 4 qualities, I think, then give you a barometer to say, do we have a fighting chance to make this work? Or do we have to start over again?
Right. Exactly. Well, good. We have about 30 seconds left. Just to recap for those who are watching or viewing for the first time, we do these conversations once a day, and they're always tied to the topic, which is inspired by the daily field note that Admired Leadership writes on a daily basis, which you can find over at substack.com. So thanks for joining in. We encourage your comments. If once the stream ends, which will end here in a couple seconds, go over to Substack and put your comments in the comment section there, because we'd love to continue to interact with you on this, right? Directly on the post.
And some people might be watching in Substack right now. So great.
Right. And so today we're in LinkedIn for the first time. And you might also give us a thumbs up from Facebook and over on X and then in Substack. And we'll continue to do this, and we'll see you again tomorrow as well.
Thanks, Mikey.
All right. Bye now.